Years later at my factory, I realized I had overlooked something. The men who were most meticulous about machinery purchases, who paid the closest attention to price per kilogram, who tracked invoice dates best, they were generally the ones who managed money best and made the best investments. Unlike those who showed off, these people appeared quiet and reserved from a distance. Actually, my own story is similar. In the mid-1990s, I started with a small garment workshop inherited from my father. Even back then, I remember deliberating many times before buying merino wool. Today, I have 400 employees in my factory, yet the same habit continues. Nothing has changed, and I am quite content with my situation. Today, I will tell you about 9 characteristics of people who accumulate wealth. And most importantly, I strongly recommend you adopt these habits, regardless of whether the money in your hands is small or large. I have sat at the table many times with financiers, bankers, accountants, and business people. You can immediately distinguish wealthy people from middle-class people who try to look rich. A wealthy man states a number plainly, $150,000. He says nothing more. No empty words, no defensiveness. A middle-class egotist either dismisses it, yeah, something like that, or exaggerates, we were actually looking at something much better. A person knowledgeable about money does not act emotionally. When I hear a price while buying fabric for my factory, I neither get excited nor tense. I evaluate the number, make a decision. If it works, I buy. If it doesn't, I move on. This absence of emotion is a trait that develops in your character as you accumulate wealth. Once you get to know money, instead of panicking, you make rational decisions. I drive a 2017 Toyota Land Cruiser with 280,000 kilometers on it, fully paid off. My driver usually uses it. I have never had a thought of changing it, and likely won't for many years. I have a factory owner friend in New York. He has been driving a BMW 7 Series for 8 years, changing cars every 3 years. He says, image is essential for receiving clients. He is not as meticulous as I am when it comes to accounting. When you buy a $50,000 car, you lose 20% of its value the moment you drive off the lot. By the end of the first year, that loss reaches 25 to 30%. So this man is throwing away $15,000 to $20,000 every 3 years, directly into the trash, plus rent or loan interest. Over 30 years with compound interest, that money grows to something close to $900,000. Wouldn't it have been more profitable to use that money for fabric stock, machinery renewal, and employee bonuses? Who made the better decision? I'll leave the judgment to you. A vehicle is a means of transportation. It gets you from point A to point B. I find it irrational to pay extra to turn it into a status symbol. I strongly recommend you not miss this point. For years, there are 5 things I never hesitate to spend money on. A good financial advisor charges me $1,400 a year for tax optimization, saves me $9,000. Comprehensive factory insurance, employee training, legal consulting, an index fund-based investment portfolio. None of this information can be found on Instagram. This is very valuable knowledge. Yet some business people around me want to be seen at every opening, every event, every luxury restaurant dinner, and call it networking. But when you look at their monthly expense breakdown, you see mostly wasted show-off costs. Spend your money on things that generate added value, not on show. What I'm about to say might seem contradictory, but I'll explain. Last month, I had my team do a price comparison for office supplies. A $300 to $400 purchase. My secretary looked at me and said, "Is it really necessary to bother with something this small?" Yes, we should bother, because small expenses determine big habits, and those habits seep into large expenditures too. But that same week, there was a leak in the factory roof. The technical team received a $20,000 repair quote. I approved it before even getting a second quote. Can a problem at the workplace be delayed? No, it cannot. If delayed, that damage becomes $100,000 the following year. Urgent necessities must be addressed immediately. Wants, however, should be researched and sometimes waited on, and over time, they often disappear on their own. When I started in textiles, I learned this. There are seasonal fluctuations. Fabric prices go up and down. Exchange rates shift. Sometimes you wait 3 months, sometimes 6 months. You buy the right material at the right time and aim to be more cost-efficient than your competitors. Patience is an absolute must in finance. A person who can control their impulses waits on every purchase decision. On average, 24 hours, 7 days, and for bigger ones, 30 days. During that time, about 80% of that impulse disappears. The remaining 20% is when it's time to decide. And that is the real need, anyway. Compound interest loves to reward patient people. Money invested at age 35 is worth 4 times more at age 65 than money invested at age 55. Only the patient and those who can make rational decisions can build wealth. As my factory grew, my expenses grew too, but not at the same rate. I have always strived to keep my income at its maximum and my expenses at their minimum. I know a businessman. As his revenue increased, so did his car model. He moved from an apartment to a villa. His vacations became more luxurious. His revenue grew, but his profit margin dropped, which meant more debt, which caused him more stress. As my wealth grew, I first set aside the amount I would invest and arranged my life with what remained. When your income increases, your first priority should be the investment you will make. You can shape your lifestyle with what is left. Compound interest begins with the money already in hand. I now find some meetings unnecessary, so I delegate them because I pay people for that. Why? Because I did the math. When the annual income from my portfolio reached a certain level, the value of 1 hour of my time became very high. It makes economic sense to outsource everything that falls below that value. A flight is more expensive than driving, but saves me 4 hours. I calculate whether the cost is worth that savings. House cleaning, shopping, certain administrative tasks, I outsource these because I don't have time for them. As you build wealth, your time becomes just as valuable as your money. Stop asking, can I afford this? Start asking, what am I actually buying and is it worth it? In 2008, the global crisis. In 2020, the pandemic. In both periods, I watched many people around me file for bankruptcy, empty their portfolios and panic because they couldn't manage the crisis. Not everyone can cope with situations like these. Our investment mindset must be built with the next 15 to 20 years of crises and worst-case scenarios in mind, so that we don't stumble when something happens. The big players who stayed standing in 2008 had the opportunity to observe the market, and those who held on, especially those who bought, won big. Research by Goldman Sachs shows that missing just the best 10 days since 2009 significantly reduces your annual return. When the market drops, my alarm goes off, but not to say sell. The alarm goes off to say, is there an opportunity? Evaluate it. You need to stay calm in all circumstances. I have memorized how competition works in textiles. When your competitor buys a machine, you want that machine. When your competitor attends a trade fair, you want to attend too. This is unavoidable in the business world. But in personal finance, this race drives you off a cliff. Your neighbor bought a higher-end car. Do you need one too? Your friend vacations at the most luxurious hotels. Do you need to as well? If these thoughts have taken root in your mind, you must purge them immediately. Luxury brands charge 40 times their production cost just for their logo. Most of that money goes toward the marketing budget used to trigger the thought in your mind of, I am superior, I am wealthier, I am more valuable. I have defined my own priorities. You should define yours. But don't base those priorities on looking at other people's lives. Make a rational decision. Your neighbor's luxury car is his concern, not yours. What I observe in my life today is this. Real wealth accumulates silently. No one watches, no one applauds. Alongside driving unglamorous cars and making boring investments, it requires patient decisions, keeping your standard of living steady, protecting your time, and stopping the comparison with others. The 9 habits I have listed here are how I built my financial freedom, and I know this. The great majority of them can and should be applied today, whatever your income level may be. Wealth does not reward those who move the fastest. It rewards those who wait with the most patience and consistency.